Mario Kart 8 released in 2014 for the Nintendo Wii U, a console that unfortunately failed in terms of sales. In 2017, the game was given a revival, another chance to shine, in the form of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the new Nintendo Switch. Nobody was expecting it, but this game lived on strongly for the next few years, and in March of 2022, Nintendo released the Booster Course Pass, a DLC including 48 tracks, new and returning, that would be split into 6 waves, slowly releasing until the end of 2023. And now that all 6 waves have been released, it's finally time that I take on the huge undertaking of ranking all 96 tracks available in the incredible long-living game that is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. The double F tier is reserved for one single track that was so incredibly awful that it got its own tier. Starting off not so strong with a course that needed its own tier, Bone Dry Dunes is so god-awful that it lands itself in the double F tier and below every other track in the entire game. I never liked this track to begin with. Desert courses are not really my cup of tea, as you'll continue to see as we rank the rest of the tracks, but Bone Dry Dunes reaches a new low. Sometimes with time, a particular track will grow on you, but this track did the opposite. Every day I find myself hating this course more and more. I believe there is not a single person on this earth who hates Bone Dry Dunes more than me. Everything from the aesthetic, to the layout, to the music, this track is below mediocre in every way. To really put this into perspective, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has one of my favorite video game soundtracks of all time, but Bone Dry Dunes has music that I would never even think of listening to on my own time. The music is the least of our worries though, because the layout of this track is really what makes me hate it so much. There is not one turn that feels satisfying to drift. There is not one shortcut that evokes joy. Driving on the sand towards the end doesn't feel right. Dry Bones does not deserve to be stuck representing this poor excuse of a track. Maybe there are courses out there that are boring or ugly or plain annoying, but nothing will ever beat out Bone Dry Dunes as my least favorite course, and I just have a personal hatred towards it. I'm sorry if this is one of your favorites, but I have a personal problem with this track that I unfortunately will never get over. From here on out, I will never be this harsh on any other track, so don't think this entire video will be this negative. The F tier is the bottom tier and includes the tracks I really dislike. If any of these tracks gets chosen online, I buckle in for a boring race and hope that the next chosen track will be better. Every track here falls drastically short in one or more areas. Baby Park is a small oval-shaped track that is very short, hence why racers must complete 7 laps here as opposed to the normal 3. This track originates from Double Dash, a game with several big and special items that really affected the course. Therefore, Baby Park worked better in that game than it does in any of its remakes. Sure, the 8 Deluxe remake isn't as god-awful as the DS one, but it's still really boring to me personally. I know it's supposed to be chaotic with all the players in such close proximity, but truly the only thing that sticks out for me is how cool and detailed the background elements are. If you've seen my Tour City ranking video from a few months ago, you'd know that I placed Tokyo Blur as the worst city track, and as you can see here, that still stands. Some of the other placements may have moved around, which we'll get to later, but Tokyo is still down here as my least favorite by a landslide. I just really don't like this track. It's so incredibly boring and lacks any originality. It doesn't look very great either. There are just really no redeemable factors about this track, and it's not even that much fun to drive on. Toad's Turnpike is probably my least played Mario Kart 8 Deluxe track. Even when it's an option online, nobody really picks it, and for good reason too. Toad's Turnpike is just a really boring highway track that doesn't compare to the other great road tracks in the game. I'm really just struggling to find anything to say about this track. It's such a snooze fest the whole way through. Driving on the anti-grav panels and some of the walls can be fun, so I suppose that is one decent thing about this overall pretty bad track. Mario Circuit 3, a boring, flavorless, and ugly-looking track. Everything looks the same here, and I get that it's a SNES remake, but as we'll see later on the list, SNES remakes can be incredible. This one is not. The turns are basic and quite repetitive. There's not much else to say other than it's a basic circuit track with little to offer aside from the somewhat fun off-road shortcuts. Toad's Circuit is like the annoying little cousin track that everyone likes to pick on, and just by looking at it, it's clear to why people do that. For starters, the remake is straight up uglier than the original track on the 3DS, which came out years before the Switch. To add on, Toad Circuit was like the starter, basic circuit track of Mario Kart 7, and was never a super standout track on that game either, so I just struggle to wrap my brain around why on earth Nintendo would add this one to the Booster Pass and not a better track like the Woohoo Island tracks, or Shy Guy Bazaar. The D tier includes tracks I don't really like, but can understand why someone else would enjoy them. I don't really like when some of these tracks get chosen online, but they have some sort of redeeming factor that saved them from being placed in the F tier. I'm not the type to enjoy the haunted aesthetic, so I don't usually like haunted tracks much either, and I also don't particularly like underwater themes, so Twisted Mansion is not one of my favorites at all. The track sees you racing through a flooded haunted mansion, which I will say is a really unique concept. The track is alright to drive on, but as I said, the look and theme is not my thing, and the aesthetics are an important aspect for me, so unfortunately I just can't get myself to like this track much. I never liked Cheep Cheep Beach ever since I played it on the Mario Kart DS. Even as a young kid, I hated this one. It's just not got a lot going for it. It's nothing but a basic and boring beach track that I really do not enjoy navigating. I do like beach-themed levels, but not this one. You drive on a boardwalk, then fly onto these sandy islands before dipping underwater and emerging onto the beach once again. The last section takes you through this sort of foresty area, which I do think is cool, but yeah, this track doesn't really impress me. Here we see yet another desert track that I don't really like with Dry Dry Desert. I actually used to hate this course a lot more, but I moved it up ever so slightly for one big reason: the music. I don't know what it is about desert music in video games, but I just really enjoy how it sounds. Dry Dry Desert is just so bland and lacks any unique touches to it. I like the sand spiral, and the Oasis section is cool, I guess, although it doesn't really suit the name of the course. It's also kind of funny how far you can go using the off-road of the track, but it's just another boring and forgettable desert course at the end of the day. Continuing the trend of bland desert tracks is Cheeseland, also coincidentally another course that I used to hate a lot more but learned to tolerate over time. The thing that gets me about Cheeseland is the original course's theme. The GBA version looked to take place on the moon, alluding to the moon being made out of cheese. This course also looked really cool, actually looked like cheese. The remade Cheeseland, in heavy quotations, is barely cheesy enough to deserve the name. It's been stripped of its originality and turned into another desert track. But I will mention that the other day I was playing this track, absolutely sucking as always, and I managed to use the insane off-road shortcuts to propel myself into first place at the last minute. I guess that's why it's called Cheeseland. New York Minute is obviously based on New York City and features many bright buildings and a drive through Times Square and Central Park. I guess I should cut this track some slack since it was the very first Tour City track, but I just don't like it that much. I used to enjoy it more, but with time it's grown so stale. Even the music can't save this track, just being a basic, bustling city kind of theme. I do like how New York Minute takes place at night, as it gives it more of a cozy and unique feel. Other than that, though, there's not much to say. I don't really care for this track. Sky High Sunday has you and the other racers driving on bright and vibrant desserts in the sky. The colors are very bright and joyful, which I actually don't mind since I love colorful things. I also really love food-themed levels like the Luncheon Kingdom from Super Mario Odyssey. So why is Sky High Sunday so low if I seem to love the aesthetic? The reason is just the driving. It's not super fun to race on. It feels sort of awkward since the whole thing has water physics for some reason. The whole thing is also just a glorified oval, which leaves the whole track with a bunch of turns that feel the same. Calamari Desert is an iconic desert track that takes place on orange sand and of course features the famous train. And in this remake we actually get to go through the tunnel. I respect the effort that went into making this remake since the original on the N64 was always sort of lacking. As I've already said too many times, I just don't love desert tracks in Mario Kart. Mario Kart 7 had a mixed bag of tracks, with most nitros being either really standout or just kind of there. Piranha Plant Slide is a cool concept, but it just doesn't do it for me. There are tracks from the 3DS that I really wish could have been in this game instead of this one. Piranha Plant Slide is a track that mostly takes place under the ground, which is entered by taking differently colored pipe slides. As the name suggests, there are piranha plants and slides all over the course. The track finishes with a gliding section and a turn on the ground to the finish line, with Goomba enemies. And one of them is a wood cutout for some reason. Blue Lake is a fun track that improves on its original counterpart. For starters, it finally has an actual lake around it instead of a dark void of nothing. The music here is nothing to gawk at, just your average spooky theme. Blue Lake looks pretty good for the most part, and certainly improved upon the GBA version drastically. As I've mentioned though, I'm not a haunted theme fan, so Blue Lake kinda just falls low on the list. I used to hate this course, like a lot, but I played it to the point where Donut Plains 3 has become tolerable. It's obviously based on the Donut Plains biome from Super Mario World. It sees you driving on, well, a plain. It's full of water in certain areas, and there are a few off-road shortcuts you can take. The course isn't very pretty, just being a sort of rainy, sad plain, but it's decently fun to drive on and has really catchy music. I want to start off by giving Sunset Wilds a personal apology real quick, because when Wave 5 came out, I was so immensely disappointed by this track that I slapped it right into F tier without a second thought. Looking back, I was just really upset that the whole sunset feature wasn't here. I told myself I'd give Nintendo the chance to add the changing skybox in Wave 6, hoping that they'd make this change like how they changed the cars in Coconut Mall. I said if they add it, I'd move it up, but they didn't. But I still moved this course up because it's still pretty and fun to play, even without the gimmick that literally gave it its name. Nintendo seems to be murdering these poor GBA tracks so far, taking away the cheese from Cheeseland and taking away the sunset from Sunset Wilds. What's next? They take away the super cool road color from Sky Garden? Well, looks like Nintendo just really hated all the cool ideas they came up with in Super Circuit. Aside from stripping poor Sky Garden's nice aesthetic, the remake isn't as bad as some people make it out to be. Like, yeah, the original was cooler, but at least the music is... You know what? I think I genuinely prefer the original music too. It had this magical pixel feeling to it. Man, what did you do to this track, Nintendo? Sherbetland is the first of many snow tracks on the list, and I really love snow and ice themes. Sherbetland is a basic but really sweet track with adorable music and enemies placed all around the stage. There isn't anything special about the track. It's just a basic drive through the snow and over the ice and even through water at some sections. But it's a cute little track that I do enjoy playing sometimes. The C tier is first of the two middle tiers, the tracks that could certainly be better. The tracks here range from ones I mildly dislike to ones that I do enjoy, but not enough to be placed higher. I'm going to start quick firing through these next ones since I really don't have a lot to say on these middle tracks. LA Laps is alright, the music is fine, a vast improvement from the tour version in my opinion. Here we drive through the beach and city of LA. Wow, LA sure is beautiful. What's this? An oil field? Nintendo, what is this? I know big cities aren't really known for their environmental consciousness, but geez man, these tour tracks are supposed to paint the cities they portray in a positive light. Moo Moo Meadows is a drive through an old dirt road and a cow farm. It's a sweet track with cute music, but I never really loved it the way some people do. Water Park is a racetrack through a water park, as the name suggests. I already said I don't love underwater levels, and this one is completely themed around that. Grumble Volcano is set at a volcano that's falling apart with every lap. Pieces of the land fall into the lava below, gradually making it harder to navigate the stage as the race goes on. The music is intense and fits the scary feeling of the world essentially falling apart all around you. Royal Raceway is actually a track I used to enjoy more before it began to get on my nerves. I feel like this track gets chosen online way more than any other course whenever I play, and it's made me so tired of playing it over and over again. That's not the track's fault though, and to be fair, it is a pretty fun track, even though it's quite basic in aesthetics and layout. I feel like there's not much to say about London Loop. It's set in London, England, it has pretty awesome rock song playing in the background. I like how the chain chomps start to roam free on the third lap, and I also like all the landmarks and buildings you drive past. Rock Mountain, also called Alpine Pass, sees you traversing a large mountain and gliding all over the place. I love the music here, and I also enjoy flying through the mountain and over the pipes. I really hated Paris Promenade at first, and I seriously don't really get why. It's a fine course, a bit boring at some points maybe, but it was the first Tour City track in the Booster Course Pass, therefore the first one I ever played, so it has some sort of nostalgia to it, even if it wasn't introduced that long ago. DK Jungle is one of the many Donkey Kong themed tracks in Mario Kart, and as the name suggests, features a race through a jungle. The course is based on Donkey Kong Island from Donkey Kong Country Returns, and includes enemies from said game such as Tiki Goons and Screaming Pillars. You also drive through the Golden Temple and past a big gold banana statue, before gliding down to the road that leads to the finish line. This course is fun, but it's never been one of my favorites. It's not usually one that I'd pick to play, but I won't complain if it gets selected online. We've finally arrived at the first track of the game, Mario Kart Stadium. This is an interesting and refreshing take on the introductory course, taking place in a stadium just like the title suggests. It introduces the anti-gravity feature and shows the player how the game works with an easy layout, a gliding section, shortcuts, everything the player should expect from the rest of the game. For a starter course, this one is pretty good, but it doesn't match up to how amazing some of the other courses are. Excite Bike Arena is based off the Excite Bike games and has you racing on an oval-shaped course, tricking over the bumps and boost panels. The cool thing about this track is that the obstacles are generated differently every time, so each race can be fresh. I enjoy racing on this track because I find tricking to be super satisfying, but it is just a basic circle track, so there's not much going for it there. Neo Bowser City is usually hated on for its slippery physics and its winding roads, but I've always kind of enjoyed this track. I think it's really pretty and cool looking, and though it can be difficult and even kind of unfun in the case of 200cc, I think Neo Bowser City deserves more love. Yoshi Valley is unique because it offers many diverse tracks that all lead to the finish line eventually. It takes place in a valley setting with cliffs and caves, and we can't forget the iconic massive Yoshi egg towards the end. The problem with this track is, once you find the optimal route, there's no good reason to take the other routes ever again, so the freshness this course strives to have is sadly missing, because if the player wants to win, they're just going to take the old reliable route every time. Besides its catchy, adventurous music, Choco Mountain doesn't stick out for me personally. It's fun to drive on for the most part, avoiding the falling boulders and driving through the caves is enjoyable, and the setting of the chocolate-themed mountain is pretty cool too. But one big issue with this track is, it's kind of ugly. It's not super nice to look at to begin with, but adding on the Wave 1 graphics just kills it even harder. Mario Kart 8 has a decent Mario Circuit track to its name. Of course, it is just a Mario Circuit, so it's never going to be super impressive or amazing or intuitive, but this one is alright. It's in a figure-8 shape to represent the title of the game, and features some more challenging turns and lines compared to the other Mario circuits in the series. Mario Circuit for Mario Kart DS is actually one of the better Mario circuits. It's more challenging than most and has a fun layout, including the fire-spitting piranha plants and the wiggler in the woods. But I will never forget the feeling I got when I initially watched the Wave 4 trailer, and it sunk in that this was the last DS track. This is the last DS track that Nintendo chose to include. Not Delfino Square, or Luigi's Mansion, or Rainbow Road, or Airship Fortress. I've mentioned on my channel before, but I really love Airship Fortress, and it broke my heart to see that a Mario circuit of all things was the track to steal its spot. Amsterdam Drift is an interesting city track that features a drive through many water dams and a flower field at the end. Amsterdam includes a lot of different things to see, all very colorful and fun. I also enjoy the music. Ah yes, Rainbow Road, the iconic finishing track of every Mario Kart game since the original. Often regarded as one of the highlight tracks of each game. Mario Kart 8 flopped. I never really loved this game's Rainbow Road as much as I love all the other Rainbow Roads. It just doesn't feel right. I respect that Nintendo tried something new, leaning more towards an overall space theme with the whole space station thing, but I can't help but feel it doesn't have the same magic as the other Rainbow Roads. I sound like a broken record saying this, but here is yet another track I used to hate that grew on me over time. Ice Ice Outpost is an icy track that includes 2 separate paths the whole way through. The track offers its fair share of shortcuts off the main road, although some are a bit difficult to master with the slippery physics of the ice. What really gets me here is the whimsical music. The course isn't perfect, it's still a bit bland and boring, but at least I don't hate it anymore. Wario's gold mine takes place in a gold mine, complete with steep minecart rails and turns, and a bunch of minecarts that give you a spin boost for some reason. I don't think the same result would happen if you bumped into a minecart in real life, but what do I know? I never got the chance to play Mario Kart Wii, but I honestly trust that this track was better back then. This course, at least the remake, never stood out to me. Dolphin Shoals is a jazzy underwater track featured in the incredible Star Cup of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, one of my personal favorite cups. Although it is the weakest of the 4 in my opinion, Dolphin Shoals is still an enjoyable track, and is even more fun with that banger of a song playing in the background. Thwomp Ruins has grown on me so much since the beginning. First I realized how catchy the adventurous music was, and then I realized how fun and original the actual track is. The track takes place in an old temple full of thwomps and sees you driving through the many parts of the ruins, including a tunnel and an area with water and a gliding section. The common theme here is thwomps, which I think are pretty cool enemies. The B tier is the second of the 2 middle tiers, and features a lot of tracks that I really enjoy but wouldn't call my top favorites. They're all great tracks but have certain issues that prevent them from being placed any higher. Rome Avanti is a nighttime course set in Rome. You start by driving up the Colosseum, and then you start to cruise through the night enjoying the pretty scenery of the city. Although the course lacks enemies and uniqueness, that's just how Tour City tracks are most of the time. I just like how it feels to actually drive through this course quite a lot. The turns feel nice, and there are a lot of ledges to trick off too. Berlin Byways has some of the best music in the series. I think that's really the main reason why it's up so high. Because besides the amazing tunes, there's not a whole lot going on in Berlin Byways. My favorite part is the colorful Berlin Wall towards the end, where you have to avoid womps that slam into the road. There are several cars on the street which help the city feel lived in. Something I feel lots of the city tracks are missing. To be completely honest, I was never the hugest fan of Peach Gardens, even in the DS days. Now that it's remade in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, my opinion hasn't changed much. The track has you driving through a large fancy garden that belongs to Peach, hence the name of the course. Within the gardens there are change humps to avoid. In the Deluxe remake, players actually go backwards on the last lap, a cool little feature that Nintendo added to spice things up. From one princess track to the next, we now have Daisy Circuit, just recently added in Wave 6 of the Booster Pass. It is pretty, and I love the statues of Daisy and Luigi. I also love the remastered music. It sounds beautiful and gives off this sort of nostalgic vibe. But at the end of the day, it is just a circuit track that I enjoy a moderate amount. Dragon Driftway is a course I never hear people talk about. I love Super Mario Galaxy, so this track being based off Gobblegut from Galaxy 2 only makes me like the course more. Racers will drive through a winding, twisting road that takes place almost all in anti-gravity. There are a lot of wacky turns and twists, which makes sense since it's supposed to emulate the body of a long dragon. Now, I might get executed for putting a fan favorite course this low, but if you're a hardcore Wii fan, keep your pitchforks out, because spoiler alert, this isn't the only fan favorite Wii track in this tier. Listen, Coconut Mall is great, the music is iconic, and the theme of driving through a shopping mall is so freaking cool. But this track is just a tiny bit overrated. I'm not at all saying it's bad. I enjoy this track, and it's a lot of fun to play through. I'm just saying that I don't think it deserves to be as high as some people put it. But if you really love Coconut Mall, then keep loving it. I love it too. My love is just stronger for many other tracks. Mario Kart 8 has a pretty awesome original Bowser's Castle, featuring lava, swinging chains, and anti-grav and gliding sections. At one point, the road splits into 2 paths, and the one you take should be decided quickly, because if you take the wrong one at the wrong time, you might find your kart being flattened by the large Bowser statue in the middle, who alternates between punching each path. I think this track has grown on me a lot. Mushroom Gorge is a relatively short track full of differently colored mushrooms. Some serve as regular platforms, while some bounce you into the air or even send you into glider mode. Even though this course is pretty short, it's fun all the way through. I love the cave full of mushrooms at the end, and the energetic music only pulls it all together. Christmas is my favorite holiday ever. I'm the type of annoying person to start celebrating as early as Halloween passes, so of course I was happy when a holiday-themed course released in Wave 3 of the Booster Pass, just in time for the Christmas season. The course takes place on a wintry mountain and features a festive train flying through the air. The reason this track isn't placed any higher is because the end of the track is lacking a bit, with it just being a straight descent to the finish line with a few coins and spin boosts. Koopa Cape is up next and is a blast to play through. The whole course is a slippery race down a water slide, and at one section the racers dip down into an underwater tunnel full of spin boost pillars instead of the electrical obstacles from the original. The music fits the energetic feel of this track and only adds to the fun. I think Koopa Cape could have been placed higher if the spinning lightning obstacles were still in the underwater tunnel. I never got to experience that, but I'm sure it was more fun than what we have now. Sweet Sweet Canyon is another dessert-themed track full of sweet treats and adorable music. I always really loved this one ever since I started playing the game. There's just something so charming and comforting about the whole thing. Madrid Drive was the final city track added to the Booster Course Pass, and it did not disappoint for me personally. I feel like it was fresh the whole way through, taking you through so many different unique areas. You drive through an art museum, a soccer stadium, and a plaza with a wiggler in the middle of it for some reason. It also felt quite fun to drive, with plenty of turns and opportunities to trick. Bangkok Rush is a beautiful city track with tons of unique elements that make it a joy to play through. You drive through shallow water full of little boats, drive across the top of market stalls, glide over the beautiful monuments and scenery. It's just such a pretty place, and I regret not appreciating it sooner. Placing around the middle of the list is the unexpected Rosalina's Ice World, a track nobody really saw coming, or wanted for that matter. But I'm actually one of the few people who doesn't hate this course. I like the overall theming of ice and snow, and of course I'm a sucker for any Galaxy references. I saw someone mention that the music for Toad Harbor sounds like the theme song to a summer sitcom, and ever since then I've thought about that every time I play this track. Toad Harbor is set on a harbor inspired by San Francisco, full of trams and market stalls. The track has such a wholesome, summery feel to it, and it's grown on me more than any other track has. I love Animal Crossing. My first game was Wild World on the DS, and I'll never forget all the angry lectures I received from Rossetti when little 6-year-old me forgot to plug her DS in before it died and closed the game before saving. I think that this little crossover track is cute. I love that there are 4 different seasons to the course, and it definitely feels like Animal Crossing. The balloon item boxes are such a nice touch, and I really adore how you get to see the villagers cheering from the sidelines. Not to mention the very charming music that plays at the end of the race, which is the music from The Roost, the cute little cafe that Brewster runs in Animal Crossing. It's incredibly sweet and a great tribute to one of my most treasured video game series. Hyrule Circuit is a Zelda-themed track set in Hyrule, and it includes several little references to the series, including having green rupees instead of usual coins. Zelda enemies like Deku Babas also show up near the end of the course. There's even a secret boost panel, only revealed after hitting every spin boost crystal on the way down to the Master Sword, a clever reference to the puzzle-like nature of the Zelda games. I think I would love this course more if I played the Zelda games, but I never really got the chance to do that. Yoshi Circuit is one of the more challenging circuit tracks with winding roads and sharp turns, all in the shape of our favorite dinosaur Yoshi. The shortcut near the start of the track is forever satisfying to pull off, and the more twisty nature of the road makes Yoshi Circuit fun the whole way through. Onto another circuit track with GBA Mario Circuit, which you might think is a little too high. I just really love the sweet simplicity of this track. It feels good to drive and improves upon the original, giving it more elevation and even an anti-grav segment. Yet another GBA remake comes next with Snowland, a sweet winter-themed course full of sliding penguins. Complete with cute and fitting music, Snowland is always a short but fun time whenever I race on it. I've already mentioned my love for Super Mario Galaxy, so of course I'm going to love Cloud Top Cruise with its beautiful musical reference to Gusty Garden Galaxy. Cloud Top Cruise takes you on an adventure through the clouds and through the airships in the sky, and even sees you racing through a storm cloud with a cool rock version of the song playing in the background. SNES Rainbow Road is a classic, enjoyable course, and a remake of the very first Rainbow Road in Mario Kart. The track is visually very pretty and just feels so nice to drive on, not to mention the iconic, heavenly music that plays the whole time. It took me a while to appreciate the greatness of Super Bell Subway. I never used to like this one much until I looked harder at all the courses for this ranking video. Driving through an underground subway station is such a cool idea. Like usual, the music playing here is fantastic and only adds to the experience. Wario Stadium is a pretty fun track where you drive through a muddy stadium, doing tricks, running over boost panels, and even flying through rings of fire. I never liked the small water section at the end though. The tracks in the A tier are all around great tracks that may or may not have a few flaws about them. That doesn't mean I don't love them though. This tier is full of tracks I choose to play almost every time I pick up the game. If this ranking happened years ago, Sunshine Airport would be so much higher on the list. It's just gotten a bit old over time, and I started to realize there are better courses out there. But Sunshine Airport is still a fun time and a unique track idea that boasts an iconic song in the background. Music Park is fully themed around music, letting you drive over various instruments like a piano that even makes sounds along with the music in the background. There are huge jumping music notes that shake the floor underneath them, giving you opportunities to trick into the air. The race finishes off with a little shortcut that you can take that requires jumping on this big drum. Daisy Cruiser is a relaxing race through a cruise ship, featuring a pool with Goombas, a shifting dining room, and even a little underwater section for some reason. I guess the cruise ship had a flooding accident. The serene music pulls this lovely course together and makes it a joy to play every time. Big Blue is an F-Zero track featured in Mario Kart 8's original DLC, which was added alongside Mute City. It's a very popular and well-liked track, and for good reason. It's a section track and takes you on a trip through the revamped version of the original F-Zero track. Essentially, you race down this huge water slide with underwater physics, which makes large jumps and skips possible, especially on 200cc. Big Blue is a fantastic track, but I think I'm in the minority of people who don't enjoy this one as much as its twin track, which will be talked about soon enough. There are several DK-themed tracks, and this is one of the most iconic ones. DK Mountain takes place on a mountain, as the name suggests, and features a huge volcano. Racers are shot through a big barrel cannon and then take a speedy drive down the mountain to the finish line. My only complaint here is that the track feels far too wide, to the point where there's little to no challenge present here. But that's not enough to hold it back from being an excellent track and a joy to play. Although there was a time I was playing online and I was trying to fix my Kart combo, but I ran out of time and was kicked out of the menu, and the game ended up auto-picking the random track option for me, and every single person in the lobby had selected DK Mountain, and against all odds, it landed on me. I was so ashamed I had to close the game and sit in silence. The random course ended up being Amsterdam Drift, and I can only imagine what the lobby thought about playing that one instead of their beloved DK Mountain. GBA Riverside Park was not one I was expecting to enjoy as much as I did. There's just something about it that makes me love it so much. The music is fantastic and is always stuck in my head. It evokes the adventurous vibe this track was looking to give. The race itself is short, but it doesn't even matter with how good it feels to drive on, not to mention the stunning visuals. I think this is one of the better looking DLC courses for sure, and it being set at evening only makes it even prettier. The newest and final tour nitro in the booster pass is Piranha Plant Cove, a course that mostly takes place underwater. It has a gloomy, dark vibe to it, but it has excellent music in the background that makes you feel like you're really on an adventure through the sea. My only real complaint here is I wish there was more danger under the water, like enemies you have to avoid, or even geysers that actually damage you if you hit them. Wild Woods is a whimsical track that takes place in a large forest where toads and Shy Guys live. I've always really enjoyed this track quite a lot. Racing down the water slide and into the pond with a lily pad boost is always exhilarating, and the gliding sections give you a minute to appreciate how beautiful the track is. Now this might be a bit of a hot take, but I love Shroom Ridge. I never paid any mind to it during the DS days, but once it was remade it was a whole different story. There's just such a simple, calming, comforting vibe to this track that no other track really has. It's this feeling of going on a road trip in the summer, your windows rolled down and the air rushing through your hair. And that music. Oh, that music. Shroom Ridge has an incredible song playing alongside it, one that makes me feel like a little kid again. I know this track is just a simple road, a criticism I gave to tracks like Tokyo Blur, but Shroom Ridge has magic and soul, and it has a special place in my heart. Sydney Sprint was once my favorite Tour City track, and still remains in my heart even now. It's a simple but fun track to drive on and has pretty awesome music too. I've always really liked the orange road that you drive on here. It makes Sydney feel unique in contrast to most city tracks that just have a regular grey road. Athens Dash has an extra unique take on the city tracks and sees you driving through ancient Athens. Instead of the usual setting of, well, a city, Athens Dash has more of a feeling of ancient ruins, having you race under and on top of old pillars and monuments. One big criticism for this track, though, the buildings look like actual plastic. Like they were made for a cheap board game and just placed as the otherwise fine-looking course. As I mentioned on my channel before, I am Canadian, so Vancouver Velocity gets a bonus point for being the one city track set in my country. The course has a snowy theme and is set at night, giving it more points for combining two of my favorite elements in Mario Kart tracks. And if all of that wasn't enough, the music here is phenomenal. Driving over the suspension bridge and through the arena is a blast every time, and the beautiful lights present all over the stage give you something to look at. N64 Rainbow Road somehow manages to be nostalgic even for me, and I didn't even play Mario Kart 64 during my early childhood. This track almost gives off this sort of Christmassy feeling that I don't quite know how to describe. There is so much joy and wonder within this gorgeous track, and the grand music really pulls it all together. I only wish it was longer like the original. Here it is, the second of the two F-Zero tracks, and the one that I prefer. It's a fast and fun race every time, and I love taking the shortcut at the very end. I don't know how many people out there like Mute City more than Big Blue, but if you do too, let me know in the comments. Moonview Highway hosts the music that I use in my intro. Besides that, it's a pretty enjoyable highway track, although maybe a bit unnecessary to add in the DLC already centered around city and road tracks. Nevertheless, this course is still a blast to play through, and avoiding the iconic bomb cars is scary and fun. The iconic and relaxing Maple Treeway is up next. Driving through a massive autumn-themed tree is such a cool idea, and the huge wigglers make it even better. There's just something so sweet and enjoyable about this course, and it's no wonder it's such a fan favorite. The gliding section at the very end fits in seamlessly, although I understand if some people would rather have the wavy bridge of the original back. I'm not sure if I put this one up too high, but there's just something so satisfying about driving on SNES Bowser Castle 3. The course was revamped and given such a huge glow up not only in terms of the aesthetics, but especially in terms of how the course plays. It is so much fun tricking over the splitting path ramps, and trying to stay on top of the walls with the boost panels is a challenge but so rewarding to pull off. This is the better version of Wario Stadium. Waluigi Stadium is so much fun to race through and looks and sounds pretty awesome too. I don't really have a whole lot to say about this one other than it's a fantastic track that I love to play. The S tier is for some of the best tracks in the game, the ones I play often and choose to play online whenever they're an option. They couldn't quite make it to the special top tier, but there are little to no flaws for all the tracks featured here. Shy Guy Falls is an exhilarating race through a speedy waterfall, all in anti-gravity. Of course, the singing Shy Guys are a highlight, but besides that, this course is always so exciting to play through. I remember always adoring this one ever since I picked up the game for the first time, and it's stuck in my memory and heart ever since then. Now this is the best DK-themed track. DK Summit is a race down a snowy mountain full of half-pipes and snowboarding Shy Guys. This is such an iconic track, and for good reason too. Before I got the chance to play it when it came out in the DLC, I always heard so much praise for it, and since it was a snow-themed track, I just knew I'd love it. I'm always drawn to choosing this one whenever I play online, and with how much of a fan favorite it is, the lobby usually agrees as well. Ninja Hideaway boasts one of my absolute favorite songs of all the Mario Kart music. It never fails to hype me up and fits the energy of this track perfectly. This was the very first Tour Nitro added to the DLC, and it does show a bit. Compared to some of the later Nitros, Ninja Hideaway does fall a bit short, but that doesn't matter right now. It takes place in the Shy Guy Dojo and has you driving through several different areas. I feel like there are a lot of choice with what direction and paths you can take here, and it gives the stage a lot of replayability. Ribbon Road is a fantastic example of taking a great idea and executing it into an incredible racetrack. GBA Ribbon Road was already a fun track with a super cool theme, but the remake in Mario Kart 8 took it and improved it by 100%. The track is already so much fun to drive on, taking place on differently colored ribbons, some wavy and some twisty and turny. But then you look in the background and you're forever entertained by the sheer amount of details. Ribbon Road takes place in a child's bedroom, and there are countless Nintendo-themed toys sitting all over the place. This is an absolutely phenomenal track and one of my all-time favorites. Singapore Speedway is a city track. It's a city track and it made its way all the way into my top 10. But Singapore isn't like all the other city tracks. It is far and away my favorite of the bunch. Not only is it beautiful, set at night with several gliding sections that cruise over the lovely landmarks of the city, but it's also such a blast to drive all through the different areas. You start off by gliding up onto this roof with a pool, complete with swimming Goombas. Then you glide over a little soccer field. Soon you'll find the Chinatown section that even has its own remix of the main song. Speaking of the song, God is it amazing. It's the music I usually use for my outro, and it's constantly stuck in my head. Singapore Speedway is without a doubt my favorite city track and was good enough to land itself this high on the list. There are too many amazing DS tracks, and this is one of the all-time greats. Ever since I first played it on my DS all those years ago, Tick-Tock Clock has been one of my favorites. The track is based off the Super Mario 64 level of the same name, and is full of clocks and elements of clocks. Even the music has clocks within it. On top of a cool concept and amazing gameplay, the remake in Mario Kart 8 gave a fresh coat of paint to this DS track, giving it the glow-up it always deserved. The amount of details present in Squeaky Clean Sprint almost makes it feel like the base game track, when in reality it was released as the Nitro for Wave 5 of the Booster Pass. The track takes place in a bathroom where the races are very small in relation to the rest of the room. You drive through the bathtub, into the drain, over a slippery soapy section, you even fly over a toilet spouting water, and then after you fly over that toilet you can choose between a top and a bottom path. There is a wedding ring in the drains, which is such a cool detail. It's like it fell through there and it's been stuck in there for years. It's such a real detail that Nintendo cleverly added. Most of the torn nitros in the Booster Pass were amazing, and Squeaky Clean Sprint gets the silver medal as the second best of that category. Electrodrome has some of the best music in any Mario Kart track, and it sure fits perfectly because this track is set in a high-energy nightclub. Ever since I started playing the game, Electrodrome has been one of my favorite tracks of all time. I think it might even be my most played track, because it shows up as my favorite track in my play stats. Electrodrome is just so much fun to play from start to finish, with a few gliding sections and anti-gravity all over the place. At one point, the track splits into two paths, a pink and a green one. Although it doesn't matter which one you take, I always seem to take the green one. Electrodrome just barely missed the top 5, but it still holds a special place in my heart. We've finally reached the top tier, the best of the best. The double S tier is reserved for my top 5 favorite tracks in the entire game. All 5 of them either have a lot of meaning to me or just are so amazing in every aspect that they had to be up here. I spent hours playing Mario Kart DS when I was younger, and the legendary Waluigi Pinball has always been one of my favorite tracks. I'm sure you're tired of seeing this track at the top of everyone's list, but I mean, there's a reason it's always up there. The fresh coat of paint this track received in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe only made it better than it already was. This, out of all the DS tracks, deserved to make it into the DLC the most, and I'm so glad it did. I don't even have to mention the incredible music. I do definitely prefer the original chiptune version, but the 8 version suffices just fine. One of the sweetest and most charming Mario games for me is Yoshi's Island on the SNES, a platformer where you play as differently colored Yoshis to carry baby Mario safely through the levels. It's always been a favorite game of mine since I was younger, so obviously I was going to be a sucker for the Mario Kart track of the same name. The amount of charming references throughout the track is one thing. The background music is a direct reference to the athletic theme from the game. The coins are remodeled to carry the same look as the coins from Yoshi's Island, and the jingles that play at the beginning and end of the race are even the same jingles from the game this track is honoring. Yoshi's Island is one of my favorite Mario Kart tracks and is definitely the best tour nitro that we've gotten from the Booster Course Pass. I will admit I never played Mario Kart Wii when I was younger, so this track doesn't have any nostalgia value to me. But that didn't stop me from absolutely tearing up when I played this for the first time when it finally came to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Everything from the music, to the visuals, to the journey it represented. This track is absolutely impeccable and was worth the wait and always worth the hype that it gets. Even the detail of your racer catching on fire while they soar towards the earth is something Nintendo didn't have to add, but they did it anyway. Wii Rainbow Road was the perfect choice to end off the Booster Pass and the game as a whole. I would absolutely understand someone saying that this is their favorite Rainbow Road or even their favorite track of all time, but for me, there are 2 tracks that reach an even higher point in my heart. This is the best Mario Kart 8 original track. From the very start, this track really stood out to me. I've always enjoyed the snowy aesthetic, as I already mentioned, and this track executes that flawlessly. Mount Wario is an adventure, one big lap down a huge mountain. Everything about this track, from starting in a helicopter to ending on a large ski hill, just feels so perfect and right. This is one of the most satisfying tracks to play, and all of it only gets better with one of the best songs playing in the background that slightly changes every section. There's never a dull moment playing this track, and it will always be one of my favorite Mario Kart tracks of all time. Video games have always been a big part of my life, ever since I was a kid. Mario Kart and the Super Mario series as a whole have always been there as I grew up. One of my very first Mario Kart games was Mario Kart 7 on the Nintendo 3DS. which is a title I don't see much appreciation for. It added some pretty memorable and creative tracks, at least in my opinion, but none of those tracks quite match up to the masterpiece that is 3DS Rainbow Road. Rainbow Road has always been a staple in the Mario Kart franchise, and many people have at least one rendition of Rainbow Road in their top favorite tracks. For me, that Rainbow Road is the one from Mario Kart 7. Where to even start with this? I can barely even call it a course. It deserves a title like an adventure, or a journey, or a masterpiece. A trip that defines exactly what I love about Mario Kart. Even with its introduction on the 3DS, this track always looked beautiful and played amazing. But with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's improved graphics, 3DS Rainbow Road has become even more breathtakingly stunning than it already was. You start off on a gorgeously colored road and soon find yourself driving on the rings of Saturn. Eventually, you and the other racers are even traveling on the moon. Not only is this piece of art visually stunning and enjoyable to race on, but it is accompanied by one of the best, if not the best, musical numbers in the entire franchise. I will say I like the original music more, as it feels more soothing compared to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's remakes. But every time I listen to it, I feel intense nostalgia that no other Mario Kart track can compare to. It's even powerful enough to make me cry. For all these reasons, 3DS Rainbow Road is my #1 favorite track in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and my favorite track in the entire series. If you really made it this far, I want to thank you so much for listening to me rant about Mario Kart tracks for however long this ended up taking. Speaking of how long things took, this video took a long time. Ranking all these incredible tracks was already hard enough, but the scripting, recording, and editing was a whole other can of worms. So now, more than ever, I'd appreciate if you could leave a like and subscribe to my channel. Also, feel free to leave your favorite tracks in the comments. Before I end this video, I'd like to give a huge thank you to Nintendo and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. This incredible game has been out and alive for like a decade almost. It's the best-selling game on the Switch, and for good reason. This was the first game I ever got for my Switch, and it's given me so many good memories that I'll always keep in my heart. Thank you for an incredible time, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. You'll go down in history as one of the best Mario Kart games of all time. Now it's time to rest and let Mario Kart 9 take the spotlight, whenever that day may come. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day or night.